I've been doing some reflecting over the last couple of months. Obviously with prices absolutely tanking, and the market slowly starting to value different types of projects over others. And I've kind of come to terms that, what originally got me into crypto, the types of projects and the types of things that really drew me in to kind of keep me in this space and keep me interested in what was happening, are no longer what the industry or what people really value anymore. And if it's not completely obvious at this point, real world assets, tokenization, essentially stablecoins, things that put Web 2 onto blockchain rails is what people value, and it's what the market's currently valuing. And if you guys remember back in the day, the types of experiments, the types of projects that people would come out with, there was no end to them, right? Frankly, just for example, the what happens to be the most valuable projects in crypto today are decentralized exchanges and perps, which have been around for literally years. So not to say that innovations haven't come since then, it's just that the market hasn't valued any innovative projects or things, in relation to those since they were, created. Like Uniswap, for example, is still one of the probably most used protocols in crypto. They came out, 5 years ago at this point, maybe even 6 years ago actually, and they still happen to be, one of the most biggest protocols in crypto. Not to say that, the other chains, for example, aren't good examples of that. But if you think about it, what do you use a chain for? It's going to be swapping. It's going to be perps. It's essentially the transfer of value that, is really crypto's main use case. And I think we've all known that for a long time, and it's what we originally pitched crypto as. Obviously, mutability, decentralization, the ability to custody your own funds, all these things still matter now more than ever, actually. But there really hasn't been that much more innovation beyond it. The only innovation there's been actually has been at the infrastructure level that helps improve those features. So it's just an interesting thought, coming from back in 2021, I remember stablecoins, essentially no one cared about because the only ones that existed were centralized, like USDC and DAI, which was more or less half backed by USDC and ETH. Obviously since then, the industry has gone the route, pretty much, of course, of just being fully, backing fully centralized stablecoins. Even obviously, as far as, we're at the point where, the U.S. government is trying to pass a bill that will give clarity on how to create stablecoins. It's just crazy, right? It's just wild times, nowadays compared to early on, and I don't know. Again, I think the market tanking has a lot to do with my current. Maybe tiny bit of boredom with the space a little bit. There's still a lot of interesting things happening, but a lot of them are at the infrastructure layer. Crypto Social essentially failed everybody. If you were around for the past couple of months, Farcaster, Base, App, what was the other one? There's remember FriendTech? Oh my god. A lot of different crypto social experiments did not end up well, and most of them were just not sustainable. And that's the problem with a lot of crypto, is that it just turns out that a lot of projects, a lot of things that people were building just didn't end up being sustainable enough to carry on long term. And even beyond that, it's just a shame that a lot of the tokens associated with some of these projects, in all reality, are probably what caused the downfall of probably some really, really good primitives that existed out there. Ironically enough, I remember telling my friends way back in the day, you should join crypto because you get equity and you get tokens. Well, we're now at the point where people are realizing tokens is not the same as equity in a company, obviously. And I think the market's now kind of pricing that in for a lot of projects. And I made a video like this before, but it's pretty crazy to see that. So I'm really curious to see what 2026, 2027, and even beyond looks like for crypto. I think it's really interesting because I think crypto just becomes largely like finance. Obviously, DeFi has been the core value prop for crypto since its inception. But I think, in all reality, I've said this before. I always figured that maybe this is how crypto gets adoption, is as rails for the real world. So existing companies, same thing, but instead they're operating with blockchains in the back end. I think that's just the way it's going to be. And in all reality, the crypto culture that used to be will probably no longer exist. And if it does, it'll exist in a very, very small bubble. And it does not help that Nikita from X is essentially, it almost seems like Homie is trying to kill CT as much as possible. At least that's what everyone's presumption is. At least that's what it looks like to me. I don't know. What do you guys think? For those who are on YouTube, I know it's a much different dynamic. The crypto community, the crypto the crypto sphere. Do you guys feel this? Does YouTube obviously? Even YouTube. I remember back in the day when I was making this channel, and I was, launching videos about different chains and different projects and different this and different that, and it was fun. And I think nowadays it still is fun to learn about these different teams and different projects. And the problem comes in that, obviously everyone wants to make some sort of money off of whatever someone's launching, and the reality is that there's not the amount of the money to. There was a lot of money to be made early on, back when, for example, I first started this channel. But it's a much different environment, and it's much harder to do that, I think. I, for one, for example, I've seen my portfolio go up quite a bit, and I'll be honest with you guys, I am terrible at selling. I am the worst person at selling. So, even as someone who's been in the space for such a long time, that's one thing where I'm like, I just, I believe in the industry so much that kind of almost blinds me from realizing just because something is worth a certain amount now doesn't mean that that's what the fair market value is and what it will be in a month or a year or whatever it may be.